When are you interviewing Bob McCoskrie? Someone says, well, right now, actually. Welcome to Bob McCoskrie, CEO of Family First New Zealand. Bob, nice to have you on the program again.
Morning, Sean.
All right, you presented a petition to Tania Unkovich, I think, in Winston Peters yesterday. What did that petition to Parliament say?
Well, yeah, I'm sure you've seen all the massive media coverage of it, Sean, because the media were there in their droves. It was a petition. It was a petition asking, what is a woman? And we presented it. It was signed by 23,500 people, which is, we're pretty impressed with.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad.
Well, simply because, remember, we tried to place some ads in the newspapers and all the heads of the corporate media got together and had a little tete-a-tete and said, oh, no, we're not going to put in a advert that simply says...
Now, this is another reason I wanted to talk to you today, because the outrage over the Herald taking a front page ad from Hobson's Pledge yesterday, and I was surprised the Herald took it. But, of course, all the usual suspects, I just mentioned Marnie Dunlop, Kerry Allen's old girlfriend, Moana Maniapoto Jackson, a whole lot of very radical Maori media people, they all said this is outrageous of the Herald. What's happened to their editorial standards? And they seem to lack entirely an understanding that editorial and advertorial or advertising are two different things. But I was surprised that the Herald took that ad, and I wonder if they haven't changed their policy, and if you were to reapply to run a major ad in the Herald, if they might not now accept it.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Maybe we should test the water. I mean, I was fascinated by that. There are media that needs the money, and yet they were willing to...
discriminate against you, basically.
But, of course, they are checking on the safety of all the reporters at the New Zealand Herald because of that
it's just ridiculous. That's just woke crap, isn't it?
But anyway, back to our petition. So our one says that a woman should be defined as an adult human female in all our laws, public policies and regulations. And basically it means that when we're dealing with areas like schools, sports, prisons, domestic violence, places, rape crisis, changing rooms, toilets, where safety and privacy is important, boxing rings, then we should recognise the difference between male and female and make it clear. Now, obviously, Tania Unkovich was keen to accept it because she's got that bill which would clearly delineate a male and a female toilet in a public place. But Winston Peters has obviously been pushing hard on this issue, and he actually got a hard time in the House yesterday from Chris Hipkins, who had nothing else to ask about. So he said, why is Winston
But
so
Bob,
interested?
I would add, Mr. Peters came on this show and went all hot and heavy on the Sport Foundation's issues around diversity and defining women, and then he kind of went cold. He came out and said, I'm going to get Raylene Castles to change these rules and make it bloody clear. And then he didn't really.
Yeah, well, I guess we need to follow him up on that. I know that I'm not defending him, but he's just travelling so much in his foreign affairs role. I know it's really hard. We had to really work hard to present the petition when he was actually in the country. So in his defence, but at the same time, let's reach out and hold them accountable as to what are they doing in Syria. Same with the review.
But the petition says we would have a law that says this is what a woman is. It's a biological adult human female.
Yep, and it simply means that you protect women, especially where they're concerned about their safety or privacy. I mean, it's interesting, Sean, in all of this debate, I haven't seen any woman trying to get in the men's boxing ring. I haven't seen any woman desperate to go into a boy's toilet for good reason. And I haven't seen any woman desperate to go into a male prison.
Yeah. Do you appreciate, though, that your petition as presented, Bob, does not allow for the subtlety of what people identify not as their sex, but as their gender?
Well, basically, when you look at in the breakdown of what adult human female means, we've actually defined what female and male means. And, for example, female means an individual whose biological reproductive system is developed to produce ova, who has had or will or would have, but for a development or anomaly, the reproductive system. So we are getting right down to the nitty-gritty of how do you define an adult human female and an adult human male for that cause. But as I say, this really is about defending women, and it's interesting that a dude like me has to campaign on this alongside women. I just think men need to man up on this issue and actually call it out and support women on this.
Yep.
Anyway,
Bob, would this petition or this idea, if adopted, mean that, for example, the New Zealand Sport Foundation would have to change its current policy, which puts diversity and empathy or inclusion above, if you like, biological definitions of men and women and fairness, in fact, puts those things above fairness in sport? Would the adoption of this petition mean that Raelene Castles would have to change that policy?
Well, of course it would. And it's interesting you use the word empathy. I don't think empathy is the word to use, because I don't think there was any empathy towards the Italian boxing woman who got smashed in the ring. I don't think there's any empathy towards girls who don't go to the toilet at school and hang on all day because they don't want to confront a male.
And Bob, I observed earlier in the program, the women who are being beaten by these athletes at Paris are now holding up and making a protest sign. So if the people they are fighting say it's unfair, it is unfair.
Yeah, it's interesting, I think, so many of these sports people have found that they've been in this invidious situation where they've been told that they can't speak up about it by their sporting body. And now they're starting to, and I think when one person takes a stand, it stiffens the spines of others. And now we're seeing this trend in the women's boxing. And for all those people who felt sorry for these boxers who failed the gender test, I would just say you need to have empathy for the women who are actually speaking up and saying, actually, we don't want XY chromosomes in our boxing ring, and for good reason. Look, I understand the empathy thing. Unfortunately, those boxers are a victim. They've got a disorder. That's the sad aspect. But at the same time, you've got to act for the greater good of all people involved in that particular sport. Look, Raelene Castle, I've got no time for Raelene Castle because she totally botched the Australian rugby scene. It's gone downhill since she was in charge. She mishandled the whole Israel Folau thing and, said that he could have free speech, but only if he quoted the nice bits of the Bible. She's come over here. She's created a whole policy around how you identify. I mean, that's been the issue for the Olympics. They say that your gender is based on what's in your passport. Well, Sean, you could go down today to the Department of Internal Affairs and change your passport to female on your passport. If
because we changed the self-identification laws, that's right. And suddenly,
And you could have a female birth certificate as well. I mean, you could, party on, and you could change it back again if it wasn't convenient. This is how ridiculous we've created. And when you mess around with biology, this is unfortunately a consequence. Sure, it's not a direct transgender issue, but it's what happens when you confuse biology.